Hey everybody, welcome in. I'm going to do a brief overview of Kingmaker the Second. This is the Kickstarter edition by Gibson Games. This is of course the reboot of a very classic old game, Kingmaker. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you the components, kind of like an unboxing. I'm not going to physically take it out of the box, it's already here. And then I'm going to try and show you the setup because I saw some people asking about that. And there's a pretty good setup guide to this game. So let's just take a look at the components here. First of all, this is Kingmaker the Second on this side. It's a double-sided board. So one of the things you've seen with games that have been rebooted from older games, like think of Kremlin. That's a great Kickstarter version that's out there by Jolly Roger Games. And they kind of have seen some mistakes made, I would say, by other publishing companies, like the one that did Kingmaker, where they had a beautiful edition of a new game. Mostly, it looks good. It's got new components, but they reskinned the game in that they gave it new rules, and then they didn't give you the option of playing the old way, really, to my knowledge. I don't think it was a big complaint that people had about Kingmaker. Whereas with Kremlin, they have new variations of the game as well as the way you can play it in the old way. The same way with Kingmaker, they did it the smart way. They gave you this new map. They took a look at the rules again. They had some of the original people, kind of take what they thought needed to be changed after years and years of play, and they made it into Kingmaker the Second. But if you flip the board over, which I'm not going to do because I got stuff on here, there's the old board. You can play with the old rules, the same cards. It's just like as if you had bought it in the 70s. So brilliant. This is the second iteration of it, I guess. The biggest thing is that there are map changes, so the way the map looks is a little bit different as far as regions and that sort of thing. There's this prestige points track, which gives you another way to win. I'm not going to get into the rules a lot, but basically before you kind of had to have the only remaining heir to the throne and crown them and kind of keep them and kill everybody else off. And there was some issues with that about people running away and hiding and in different areas. Like in this version, you can't go into it. You can't go into Scotland, Ireland, or the continent. So now there is still that way to win, but there's also a prestige points victory condition where you can amass basically victory points by controlling nobles and heirs and that sort of thing. So that's a new thing. So that track is up here. The other stuff looks a little bit different as far as where decks and things go. There's this nice track over here for other cards. You have the Chancery. We can zoom in on the specifics of the board here and just kind of take a little bit of a look. This is a region, and then within them there are these little sub-regions with towns and open cities and castles and the seats of the different lords that can pop up and that sort of thing. And then they're separated by larger regions. So movement in this game, in this version of it, lets you move from anywhere in a region to anywhere in an adjacent region. So I could move from Kenilworth here all the way down to London because these regions are adjacent. I can move to anywhere in an adjacent region. So I think that's different than the original one. You can also move along these roads, which are those yellow lines or those yellow orangey lines. So that's a little bit of a close-up of the map. It's beautiful. It still kind of keeps it's an homage still to the old map. I don't think if you designed this game from the start, you would probably design it this way to look like this. I think it's kind of strange and clunky, but it's the old game. It's what it looks like. So I completely agree with them keeping the style of it. I think it is very accurate to the original. I think the other thing that's different is down here at the bottom, there is stacking zones, which are nice. So if you have a clump of pieces in an area, you can move those down to the stacking zones. I can show you some of the decks here. So this is the crown deck. Big, thick cards. So this is like a normal playing card size, which are for the event deck. You can get a nice comparison there that it's a little bit bigger than a playing card would be. But your crown deck is made up of titles, like, here's the Archbishop of Canterbury. Here's your other lords, like the Earl of Devonshire. Your untitled lords down here, like Grey, where it lists, where they can start out at. It's a little mini map. That's really nice to help decide. It also tells you the name of the place and then gives you the location on the grid. So there's a grid that runs around the outside of the map, A through G, 1 through 6. And so that kind of helps you locate things. There's other titles, Constable of the Tower of London, with all of the, clarifications on the troops that you get and that sort of thing. The ship cards, beautiful as well, great art. The titles, great, lovely art on those. They're all the same. They're not different for coats of arms and that sort of thing. Towns, once again, the art on these are all the same, but that's fine. Nice, beautiful, evocative art. And then mercenaries. The art on these are also all the same, but the text is different. So beautiful card quality. Really looks nice. That's the crown deck. And then you've also got this event deck, which is still in that same style where it's the slash. Once again, if you designed this anew, I don't think you'd do it this way. But once again, it's to cast back to the original. So free moves, plagues, storms at sea, peasant revolt, embassy to draw the king around, chancellor may summon parliament. There's all the stuff you're used to seeing if you've played this game before. Outside of that, there's the counters, which are a little bit different. So this is King Henry. Here it's a little bit different in how it looks. You can see a little crown there. Then you have someone like Margaret of Anjou. You can see here she is not crowned as the Queen Regent, but if you were to crown her, then on the opposite side it lists the Queen Regent, and it has a little crown there. So that's the royal pieces. There also is these cards over here on the side of the board that do the same thing. So here's Henry V. He only has a king side, obviously, because he is the king. So if he dies or whatever, he's removed. And then the next in line is listed right there. So you can see Margaret of Anjou, afterward Edward of Westminster. And then they have a flip side where it shows the crown, the amount of prestige points it gets you, so you know, hey, I've got Margaret of Anjou, I've got my lord and he's attached to her, I get 2 prestige points. If I crown her, boom, I've got, for the sole monarch, she's worth 4. So those are very nice and handy. They kind of help with some of that tracking of who's in line for what and so forth. Cards will fill up into this chancery. There's also this clamor for parliament, which I think is new. And these cards will be seeded into the deck, which I'll show you how to build in just a second. Each faction also has a selection of chits and counters. So they've got lords, such as this. So it's going to have the color of the player on the background, the sigil or coat of arms of the lord, and then on the back side, the same thing, except it shows them in a fortification. So that way all you have to do is flip the counter over. There's also these tiny little markers to designate who controls what and that sort of thing. Those are kind of nice. Very small though, so it's easy to lose them. I've already misplaced one and then had to go in and find it. So as far as the components goes, that's pretty much it. There's also this big old stack of player aids and such. So there's Guide to Kingmaker, which is a nice little, you've seen this recently where they'll basically walk you through a turn, which is great. It's what you need to have in a game, especially one that's fiddly as this one. And it'll just take you through, I think it's a 4-player game, turn 1, kind of show you what the different actions are and how to do them. So, and there's some hints on the back, early game, late game, end game, whatever. It's all on there, so that's handy. There is the Kingmaker rulebook, and now this is for the second. So Kingmaker the second, you can see there. This is for the updated version of the game. It's a very nice rulebook. Everything in here done well. There's lots of pictures, diagrams, examples of each card, so they explain to you what each card does with a picture of it, so you know exactly what you're looking at. Very nice quality. Pretty good rulebook, I'd say. There aren't my problem is there aren't any numbers here. So like if you want to reference the Chancellor of England, you just got to say, okay, it's page 18 at the bottom. I know it's not that big of an inconvenience, but I like when there's, like a GMT style, 18.3, go to Chancellor or whatever. I like that a little bit better, but that's a minor thing. So lots of great stuff. And then at the end, there's a little short history where it takes you through each of the figures, the royals, or the people that could possibly become the next king or queen of England. There's player aids, of which there are numerous amounts. This is, showing you the awards of prestige points, line of succession, sequence of play, good for that. A nice table of odds in here, which is useful. Terrain chart, and it gives you functions and effects on combat and all that stuff. Good, useful things. Location grid references in the back to give you where everything's at. Once again, following that grid along the outside of everything. Here's a little battle board I had stuffed in. It's a nice battle board where you can line up, you know, the attacker, defender, all the different lines of battle and stuff. So that's nice to have. That comes, if you get the Kickstarter one, it comes with your unique number, which is cool. There's also a solo rule book. So if you want to play the game solo, there is a rule book in here. Once again, similar pictures and diagrams and that sort of thing, showing you how that works. It's useful. There's a player aid for if you're playing solo. So once again, they definitely stuffed it with enough things. Selection bot player aid. So once again, useful information. The rule book for the classic edition of Kingmaker Classic, it says that on the opposite side of the board. It shows you a diagram of the old map in case you ever wanted to know what that looks like and you've never played this game before. It's true to the original. A lot less you can see going on around the board. If you look at this and you see tracks and spots and places for cards and all that stuff and lots of lines on the map, not as many lines, whereas this one is packed full of stuff going on. So, and once again, the quality is just as good as any. Lots of room for notes, surprisingly. Options and variants. I think this is just for the classic version. I think. I know it is for Kingmaker too. So there's other stuff in there for extended rule books and that sort of thing that go on. Extended classic. I think there's also some other rules for the second edition, the new edition. And plenty of other player aids. I will say one thing that I really like is on the cards, there is a very good system of labeling. So let me see here. It'll give you a little labeling here, C41 office. So it'll tell you what the card is and what deck it belongs to, because there are cards specific to the second, Kingmaker the second. There are cards specific to classic. And then there are some like extras that are part of those like extended game modes. So that's really nice that the cards are so well labeled so you can separate them. Overall, that's pretty much all the components. I can show you the ship counters as well. It's really the only thing that you haven't seen, these ship counters. Very clear. The name a little bit in red might be difficult to see, is difficult to see from far away. But that's nice to have it list the stuff on it. And then here's an example of Cromwell, who's the Earl of Westmoreland and has the city of Bristol attached to him. So, you know, a good example of what it would look like set up. So I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to go and show you how to set this game up pretty much, because there are, with this version, there's a little bit different things that you do. And then we'll come back because I think it could be helpful for people. So I'm not going to go into all the minute details of setup because there's a pretty good setup guide, but there's a few things in here that I think are useful to have for reference. So this setup page is very useful. It takes you step by step, shows you exactly where everything is. So you, of course, set out the board. Then you're going to go to Royal Pieces. These little counters that represent all the royals. It will list you in this segment. Henry VI goes to London. So you'll just take Henry VI, find London, which it gives you a little grid number, so 5B, and that'll show you where London is. And it'll have one of those for each of the royals. So the royals will go out on the board. Then crown cards. It says Kingmaker 2 uses the 74 cards with the number CO to C74. So once again, those markers in the bottom are very useful. So you'll gather those. And then one of the more interesting things about this game is, or this version of it, is these pre-set factions. So if you're playing with 3, 4, 5, or 2 players, there are these setup cards that you can pull out. And let me get the other ones here. that will already have all of the stuff you need. It just tells you what it is. Let's say you're playing with just 2 people. So it gives you the 2 factions, so Beaufort's faction, or Buford, sorry, I don't know. I'm from North Carolina, so we have Beaufort, North Carolina, Buford, South Carolina. So it tells you the titled noble, so you're going to get Buford and Pole, untitled noble, Herbert and Scrope, the different offices, title. So what you're going to do is you're going to give one of these each player, and then you've got the crown deck that'll have all of these cards, and you're going to go through and hand out all the cards that are listed for you to grab in your faction. So if you're playing this for the first time, you don't have to worry about picking and all that stuff. There's still a way to do that. If you're playing this game for the millionth time and you just want to hop in and you expect that you know everything about the game, or you know enough to know the lords and that sort of thing, you can choose your own. But these preset factions are really nice. They're balanced as well, they say. So if you draft them on your own or choose them, they may not everyone be equal, which sometimes is the fun of the game, because that's reality. But the preset faction should give everyone an honest chance, and they're all different in the way that they start. So it gives you something to think about and strategize if you were to play the game the same way every time. So you're going to grab those, you're going to get your cards, and then you can set up. You can kind of see over there, I've already got it set up for a 4-player. Everybody's got their cards and they're assigned. So everybody can do that. You'll get out the victory cards. So there are 2 victory cards. There is the royalty victory, which is always available. It's the original victory condition from the original game. Just at any time, show that your faction or alliance has the last surviving royal piece crowned as king or queen regent. Boom, you win the game. There's this other one, prestige victory. And there's a certain one depending on how many players. This is the 4-player. On the back is the 5-player. There's the same thing for 3 and 2. And it'll tell you after the prestige victory tile has been revealed, yada, yada, yada. We can look at the points. So the way this prestige victory works is in this deck down here that I've got assembled, but it's out of shot. I'm assembling so I can show you. Is going to be seeded cards, kind of like you're playing coin. And amongst this is going to be this prestige victory card. So like halfway through the deck, there's going to be this. So you're going to play the game. You're going to be drawing event cards, going, and then boom, the prestige victory card is going to pop up like a propaganda card or a coup card in a coin game. And once that happens, the prestige victory is then available, and it goes off these prestige points that I showed you at the top of the map. So I'll show you how to see the deck in a minute, but that is what the victory cards are and what they do. The other minor stuff really is, gathering player aids, placing your nobles on the board. So you have that, like I showed you, your set of pieces that you're going to go out and find. Okay, well, I've got Talbot here. Talbot can start in just this one location here. On the mini map, it shows you the possible locations. Some have more than one. So you can choose if there is. So you'll go out and put your piece of your color matching that lord, boom, out onto that space. Everybody will do that, so they'll have their pieces, and I believe you can do that in turn order if needed. So, as I said, most of that is pretty much standard, just putting pieces on the map. The big decisions you have to make are what to assign to who, and that's obviously the strategy of setup. And the last thing really is this deck down here that you have to assemble. So the way you assemble it is different for each number of players that you play with, but it's all specified very clearly in here. So you're going to remove a number of cards from the game depending on how many players you're playing with. So in this case, a 4-player game, you remove 28. There's a big stack. There's like 90 some odd cards, 92. You're going to remove 28. The remainder of the cards you're going to do just like you're playing a coin game. You're going to deal out 4 stacks of 14. Now, this is for a 4-player game. If you're playing with different numbers, it tells you how much to put in for each one. So 14 cards in 4 stacks. You're then going to take one of these Clamor for Parliament cards, which allows a Soul King to, is summoned by a Soul King, or if no king, 2 kings. If no king or 2 kings by the Chancellor of England. So the Chancellor of England or a Soul King could call Parliament. What you're going to do is you're going to take this one card and you're going to shuffle it in to the stack of 14. And you're going to do that for all of the sets. So you'll have your 14 sets, your 4 sets of 15 cards now. And each of them will have a Clamor for Parliament shuffled somewhere in there. Then you're going to take your Prestige Victory, which has the correct player count, and you're going to put that in the middle. So you're going to take a stack on top of a stack. So there's 30 cards. And you're going to put your Prestige Victory. Then you're going to put your other 2. So it's going to be in the middle, guaranteed to be in the middle. You don't shuffle it into any certain number or anything like that. And you'll have it in there, in the middle of the deck. And then you can place it up here at the event deck, space, and you'll know, boom, it's in the middle. Booyah. And everyone's going to get a free move as well. You can deal out everyone a free move card. But the event deck setup is very simple, very easy. It's just the prescribed number of cards. It's 16, 14, or 12, depending on your player count. 4 stacks. Deal in a Clamor for Parliament. Stick the correct Prestige Victory card in between, in the middle of those 4 stacks, and then boom, you've got your deck, and you can begin. It's pretty straightforward overall. So in this case, in a 4-player game, everyone's got their cards assigned to who they've got them to. The Lords would be out. They're not currently, but they would be out on the board. And then you would place out your individual faction markers on the places where you've got Lords from. So you would have that, and that would populate the map. So in the end, setup's not too bad, and it's all very clearly spelled out, very clear in the rules, the setup to begin this game. So from there, I'm not going to go into rules or anything. I might do a series on this at some point. I'm currently working on another game, and so go check out the channel to see what it is. But I can't have 2 games up at the same time, so unfortunately this will have to wait. But it is beautiful quality. It looks great. The components are amazing. Let me show you the box because it is very pretty as well. Organized pretty good. There's some odd like pouches they send with it that I don't really know what to do with, and they send some stickers, but a beautiful, beautiful box. Very evocative art. Simple, still got that same font, that, you know, this weird greeny color. You know, it still has the feel of being an old game, being very true to the original while being modern components and that sort of thing. So they did an excellent job with the production quality of it. I knew this was a special thing for them to be able to do, and there was rumors of it for a very long time. And honestly, the Kickstarter work that they did was fantastic. I mean, we backed it in October and we've got it now. So it was quick. They had some issues where they had to open up boxes and stuff, but like it took them just a matter of days to do that, it felt like. So it was a really great process, and they've made some really good products here. Beautiful cards. I love the sizes of them that change. They're not all just standard playing card sizes. They're different. They feel nice in your hands. The component quality is very good. The map is beautiful, brilliant, well set up, useful for the space that it has. It comes with 2 big chunky dice. So there you go, for those of you that are into that. And lots of good player aids and rule books. So, you know, I'm right now playing the Alexander the Great themed game, The Successors. Reminds me a lot of this, in that they're both clunky and they're both very nitpicky in rules. This is not a game for the faint of heart, in that it's not, you know, combat tables like some war games that I play, but there are a lot of little rules. But what I've found playing Successors and now playing this is that when you get people together that know how to play it, and you figured it out and you're going, it is so fun, because there's backstabbing, there's alliance making, there's deal cutting, and you're deal breaking as well. You know, you're saying you're going to do something and switching up, and it's a load of fun. It really is. And this is a great example of a game in that genre, and one of the originals as well. A true legend, this game is. So I think they did it justice. If you got one, I hope you enjoy it. If you don't, I think they're going on retail sale. And if it interests you, definitely pick it up, at least for the fact that it is a well put together game for a component size. But once again, it's not a game that's for everybody, so don't think, well, it looks great, I'm gonna go and buy it. Definitely do your research, look around, because like I said, I don't know how this works at low player counts in the second version, but it's better at higher player counts, and it's not a short game either traditionally. I think the second version makes it a little shorter with the Prestige Victory, but can make it a lot shorter. Whereas before it was kind of like a big game of hide and seek, and some people didn't like that. It's a game you'll like or you won't like. So don't just say it's pretty, I'm gonna go buy it, unless that's what you do, in which case go for it. But it's certainly, if a game that you were on the fence about getting, but you're worried that it's Kickstarter and sometimes they can have mixed outputs, it's one of the better Kickstarters I've backed. So it's worth it, for sure. Anyways, that's Kingmaker the Second, Kickstarter edition. Like I said, stay tuned, maybe we'll play it.